Bum 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 brrr, bum. Dying. I didn't mean literally. Jesus. Okay. He can't math good. He repeated this on the streams twice because it probably didn't show him. Anyways, we're back. Isn't that fucking wonderful? Anywho, before the game violently crashed and had the fit of a contortionist, let's see how many mags I need to fix. Aha, aha, aha. So basically my entire weapon layout. This game is revolutionary. Never breaks. No, it doesn't. I'm not annoyed, you're annoyed. Okay. Whee! Whee! All right. So now that everything's back in order and not breaking, busted, or gone, these are the the stats. Now, personally for me, when it came to the Hellflame Magatama, I saw that the negative 30 crit was kind of a deficit, so I cheated and used double Makami dolls for 10 critical each. This got it down to negative 10, plus the plus 5 that you get from having your weapon out at plus 100, so that took away another 5. Then you have the additional 4 with this right here from the actual Magatama Scorched itself. So it's like I only have a critical of negative 1, really. This game breaks more than the voice of a teenage boy, for real though. Anyways, my build set aside, I want to go back to talking about fire in general. Now, whenever you're creating any kind of elemental build in this game, specifically fire, a couple of the negatives you want to watch out for, because a lot of fire mags carry this for some strange god-awful reason. Just trying to figure that out. Is negative rain or ice, and for it's like I'm not allowed to talk about fire builds. Ugh. Yo. I'm starting to get pissed. I'm not allowed to talk about that. Stop. Stop. Oh hey, it is working. You know, anyways, as I was saying, got fucking delayed. Anyways, with any of your fire builds in this game, sorry about these interruptions, by the way, you want to watch out for your negatives, because more likely than not, you're going to be fighting an enemy that's either ice or rain and is somehow weak to fire. Now, that being said, watch out for your negatives, because the more of a negative that you have, the harder the enemy will hit you. And you may be able to deal like the highest amount of DPS that you possibly feasibly humanely can, but if you know, for whatever strange reason, have, let's say, a negative 100 ice with your fire build or negative 100 rain, that respective enemy is probably going to kill you, or you're going to have to heal more times than you are actually dealing DPS, unless you have a good iframe move, like again the wheel, lances, or if you're good at dodging while using embers or sublimes. Anyways, that being said, watch out for your negatives. Because the more that you don't pay attention to your negatives, the more that will come to bite you in the ass. That being said, physical defense and magical defense obviously have a part to play. On my build, I have like 23k of each. That's just how it is. And I bet you're also wondering, well, what else is there to talk about fire? Shouldn't it be as simple as that? Well, honestly, probably yeah. I wouldn't lie. It's probably as simple as that. But there's just, I guess other notes that I just want to touch down on when it comes to fire, other than making sure you definitively have 150 fire, at least 150 fire. With any of your elemental builds, this also matters a shit ton. I mean, aside from raw attack, your skill force, things like that, you also want to pay attention to your physical attack speed and critical force. It's kind of like how I explained in my leveling video. You want to pay attention to 3 things: your critical force, physical attack speed, and cooldown cut, because those also play a role in how much DPS you're going to be dishing out. So let me put it this way: if your SP, that is also another factor, your SP with any of your elemental damage, say like your elemental damage is good in the demo dungeon, but you find that it's lacking elsewhere, and maybe because the cooldown rate of your build and their physical attack speed coupled with that, along with how much SP you're burning through per move, may not exactly be lining up with how you need it in order to deal your maximum benefit of DPS for that particular build. Let me put it this way: if you can put on a build that deals 2 damage caps, let's say, with a lance back to back, but you're only given 10 casts of those lances before you have to drink an SP potion to be within reason, as opposed to another build that you have that allows you to dish out 20 lances before you have to drink an SP potion, and you only deal 5 mil, obviously damage per second is going to tell you that those 20 casts are going to deal probably more damage than those 10 casts. Now obviously those 10 casts each, let's, without having to worry about the math here, all I'm basically saying is if you can get more cast out, that's generally what you want to go for. Damage cap is a nice number to hit, don't get me wrong, I like hitting damage cap too. It shows me that I am doing good, what I'm supposed to be doing in this video game, which is hitting high numbers. But that's just it. As long as you're hitting 5 mil and above, especially on multi-hit, that's what you want to do. I mean, I don't know. To me, there is a lot of shit that needs to be said about builds like this, because if you go in with Blading Sanction 7 and 6 and you find that you're only dealing 1 million damage per tick, and you find that with Lance you're hitting at least 8 mil a cast, if Blaze Sanction hits, let's say, 7 times, then you're only dealing 7 million damage. And if between both of your lances you're at least hitting 8 mil to 7 mil, then it's probably just safer for you to use double lances. What am I getting at? Where am I getting at with this? What I'm getting at is basically, you want to find, again, like I've always said, you want to find the niche that works for you in your current state. You don't want to force it. Just because a high level is doing something with their fire build does not mean that you can immediately produce the same result as that high level. So say let's like my friend Ted here. Let's say like for his fire build, he throws on a really good build that allows him to do, let's see, 3 mil a tick with Phoenix Slash. That hits about maybe 3 or 4 times. And I try to copy that with my own variation, and I find that I only do 2 mil ticks. Well, that tells me just because Ted's capable of doing it doesn't mean that I need to be trying to emulate him. But let's say like he uses Blaze Sanction and I use Blaze Sanction, and on more average numbers than not, I do more damage than he does with Blaze Sanction. That tells me and that tells him that I'm better at using Blaze Sanction and he's better at using Phoenix Slash at the end of the day. So, that being said, you just want to find whatever element you use in this game, your skills matter a lot. Because obviously, if you're using a shitty skill like Lightning Slash 2, rank 2, you're not going to be doing as much damage as per se you using Lightning Slash rank 7. So you want to be able to calculate what will work best for you. Now, this isn't to say that you can't go out there and experiment, but if you use any skill that's rank 4 or below, and you're not using it for a utility reason, you're going to get the shit beat out of you, not by your fellow players, they're probably just not going to want to play with you, but out of the bosses, because they'll be dealing more DPS than you. Especially if you're running with negative rain on a fire elemental build, because a lot of the rain bosses in this game deal multi-hit. That's all they know. Like, there's this thing called well, he's here in Kyoto. Any of the high levels or players that have gotten to the in-game Kyoto skies will know what I'm talking about. He's shoved up there in Mizui Island. He has perceivably no legs, but a lot of his moves, all of his moves, in fact, are all rain-based, I believe. So if I were to walk in with this build right now with a negative 100 rain, chances are I would be using lances, or I wouldn't even bother with my fire build, because he's also weak to dark. So I can just throw on my dark build and have an easier time fighting him with that instead. So, even if your fire build, you find that it deals more damage than you could possibly dream of. If you find that, oh my gosh, it does great damage, but say like you want to go fight a rain enemy, and that rain enemy for you is just your kryptonite. He's kicking your ass left, right, up, and center when you're using that particular build. That doesn't necessarily mean you suck at using the element. It just means that using that element against that guy is not recommended for you anyway. Maybe you just do better with dark because that's what you're used to. I've had people like fight Mephi with ice over wind, and that befuddles me because I'm like, well, why don't you just use wind? That's his weakness. And then I find that them just using icicle punishment is good enough. I've tested out both. I just prefer using my wind more because it kills him faster. What else could be said, really? I guess this will be a particularly short video because, I don't know, I just want to feel like I'm covering all the necessities. Oh yeah, and if you are going to use a build based around the Hellflame Magatama, the Scorch one, make sure your critical is not 0, because your crit force still matters. And while with certain enemies you might hit past cap or cap non-critting, that doesn't mean you're going to do it for every enemy you run into in this game. So be sure to at least have some crit so that your crit force can help you out in assisting in the damage, because that's why it's there. That's why critical is there, and that's why crit force is there. So let's see here. What other things can I help y'all cover that will help, you know, basically progress? Now, a lot of the fire skills that I've ran into nowadays are multi-hit. So with like any elemental build, you want your critical to be at 30 at least. Mine's 18. I know that's low. Shut up. Make sure your attack's at least in a decent range. I mean, I'm cheating with the double Makami dolls, and these 3 Magatamas are each giving me additional attack. Aside from the Great Dog, that's just giving me extra crit force. Oh. And if you find for whatever reason you're not dealing enough damage, use buffs. Use something like Backstrike, for instance. Backstrike's a very good skill because you can roll behind a lot of the enemies in this game. It's just simple. Like, you can just roll behind an enemy as they try to do an attack. You roll through the attack, you have your little iframes, and you can lens them from behind, or Sumame Gaishi them from behind. Really simple stuff, you know? Just to make the game easier for you. Don't necessarily worry about what a lot of other players say. If they say, oh, well, you can't do damage unless you have an assist, can't do damage unless you have backstrike or whatever. Ultimately, it's how you want to play the game. But at the same time, if you're kind of being cocky, you're kind of being arrogant, and they throw that in your face, just remember, it's a very important lesson, that your build isn't what it is without, you know, your assists, or without backstrike. So, I guess what I'm ultimately saying is, don't get into arguments about how people want to run their build if you're not running with them. If you're running with them and you find that it's a huge detriment, and you know of a way for them to improve their builds without having to use backstrike or an assist character, tell them. Say, hey, I know of a really great way. This is my fire build. Maybe you can come up with a similar idea to it. Don't be afraid to share your build in this game. And the reason why I say that is because it might be a revolutionary breakthrough for somebody else to improve their build. And then you can see their build next time and go, hey, he based that off of mine. Well, I know a better way immediately just by looking at this. Just because somebody copies you doesn't necessarily mean that they're stealing from you. It means that they admired something about your build and they want to emulate it. That's what makes your build great. If they know how to improve upon it, and then you have the hidden schematics to even make an improvement upon that one, then all the better. You end up dealing more DPS, they end up dealing more DPS, and then at the end of the day, if y'all both end up running together, y'all will both be dealing extremely great DPS, and none of y'all will have to worry about dying or, you know, necessarily anything bad. There will be less negatives. Remember, Onigiri is not necessarily a solo game. It is a team game because it is an MMO RPG. So you want to be able to just do things like that. You want to help out the community, because the more you help out others, the more likely they're going to help you back in return. And if they don't, that's fine. You end up getting a reputation as a good guy. Now, that being said, let me just cover the notes one last time before I end this short little stream. Make sure that your physical speed, cooldown cut, SP, and critical force all correlate with each other. Make sure that they all go in line, because physical attack speed, critical force, cooldown cut, and your SP, along with SP recovery, because that does a part in your natural SP recovery, like how fast your SP recovers. All that plays a pivotal part. It is important. It is the foundation of how fast you can churn out your DPS. Make sure your fire element's at least 150. Make sure your crit force is at least 200. I'd recommend that, just so you can deal 2 times the damage. Me, I'm dealing 2.5 times the damage. I'm not even going to include that one. I'm just going to knock it off. And make sure you have good fire skills. Like for this, I use Crimson Flame Blast, Smash Sublime, Ogi Mega Bursting Ember 6. Both my Earth and my Nova both have Flame Lance 6 because I like using those 2 moves. I like using these moves a little bit better just because of the just because of how well it's treated me. Now, another note, make sure to use moves like Backstrike if it helps you out with your DPS. It even helps me out with DPS on this build. If you're using the Hellflame Scorch Mogatomo with a Supreme or an Earth, make sure you get below the 50% health threshold, but not to go below 35% or 30%, or you're going to end up just screwing yourself over anyway, even though you would get the full attack threshold from the Scorch Mogatama. And your critical, let me open this back up again, your critical matters as well. Make sure it's at least a decent number. It doesn't have to be 30, but make sure it's like somewhere at least around 20 to 30. Again, I know my critical is 18. Shut up, I'm trying to fix that. But getting around negative 30 critical is a monster within itself. As you can see with mine, it's another note. I reduced my ice negative to like negative 50. I just don't like it at being negative 100 ice anymore. That bugs me because I fight a lot of ice enemies. You can see that I don't have any negative holy, even though The Supreme offers negative holy, and so does the Hellflame Scorch Mogatama. What is this? Negative 45 holy and negative 50 holy, so that's negative 95 holy. It's 2 Makami dolls, and I believe I have some other holy mag. I have some other holy going on. I think I have 15 holy because of my Kenshin title. So that gets rid of my negative holy altogether, something I don't have to worry about. So if I fight an enemy that's holy based but so happens to be weak to fire, I'm in the good. I also get 40 movement speed from my 2 Makami dolls, so that's also helpful as well. My cooldown cut's okay. I use Chidori with this build a lot, so that's like plus 18 from the cup I use. So that's at least, what, 62? Or 61, I believe. Yeah, it's 61 cooldown cut, which isn't too bad given the fact that I can use my Sublime, then my Embers, and switch to my Earth Weapon, and, you know, do 2 lances. By the time I'm doing that, I can go back to my Supreme. All that being said, you know, just have fun with this game. That's ultimately the lesson I like to teach in these videos, is have fun with the game, because if you don't have fun with the game, you end up just going to screw yourself in the end. And I don't know. I don't think there's too much to talk particularly about fire, just other than good fire skills would be any of the Sublimes that don't hit like once and don't hit below like 2 mil a tick. Because I feel like if you're Sublimes and like only 2 mils, 3 mils Sublime yet, make sure your skill force is at least 300% plus. That's what I would recommend. And other good fire skills as well would be Blaze Sanction and Phoenix Slash. It gets shat on a lot, but it's also a good skill because I've dealt 5 million damage a tick with that before. So that can be an insanely good skill. You just got to be able to utilize it properly and with the right weapon. Ensemble of Flames. I know a lot of people like using that skill, but I fucking hate it. If you're running a build that doesn't have the Scorch Mogatama, use Ensemble of Flames to your heart's content. But if you're using a Scorch Mogatama, do not use Ensemble of Flames if you plan on going to that 30% health threshold, or even the 50% health threshold, because you will get your ass beat. Trust me, you're a stationary target. Enemies in Onigiri love it when you sit the fuck still. Anywho, Thunder Akane-chan, which is a fire wind skill, would be really good, be decent to use. But that's also, in my opinion, kind of a mediocre skill. You can do excellent damage with it, I've seen it, but given that it's fire and wind percentages, I don't really know what those consist of. Like, is it more fire than it is wind, or is it more wind than it is fire? I want to say it's more fire than it is wind, but this game has proven me wrong on bullshit like that before. So, to be on the safe side, don't use moves that you can't necessarily roll out of or block out of. That's why I like the Sublime. I think I can roll out of my Sublime. No, I can't roll out of my Sublime. But, I guess if it's a Sublime, I guess it's fine. Now I'm having doubts about using this Sublime. But that's why I kind of like my Embers, because I can roll immediately as soon as it's casted. The Sublime is kind of a meh. That's why I kind of like... I guess when I use the Sublime, I always wait for the enemy to, like, be at a moment where it just gets done attacking and I can run up behind it and then use it. Lances are kind of self-explanatory. You can just go bop, bop, not have to worry about it with lances. But moves like... Some of the best fire moves that I like, one of my personal favorites is Blaze Sanction, because while it doesn't give you iframes, you can create a good distance away from the enemy, and if you find that sweet spot, you can deal a shit ton more damage than somebody sitting there with Ensemble of Flames or Thunder Akane-chan, like the Thunder Beast Akane-chan version, or hell, maybe even my Sublime and the Ember combo. Just because Blaze Sanction 7 coupled with 6 is really great DPS. Bo has really great DPS, y'all, whether it be fire or rain. Don't underestimate him. That being said, guys, so hope you all have a nice day, and don't think there was that much for me to talk about. Hope I covered everything. If y'all find me in game and I did not answer a question that might have been jumbling around in your heads, don't be afraid to ask me. Again, don't be afraid to talk to me or any of the UNESS members, such as somebody called Lag and Dragon of the SS. I think that's your name, Ted. I think that's your name. Also known as your boy Fist on YouTube. Other than that, y'all all have a great day. Peace out. Stay safe during this quarantine pandemic bullshit.